One scotch, one bourbon, one beer. One scotch, one bourbon, one beer. Please, Mr. Bartender, listen here. I ain't here for trouble and have no fear. One scotch, one bourbon, one beer. I don't want soda, no bubble gum. You got what I want, just serve me some. Since my baby's been...
I know you're a busy guy. We really appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to join us today. And if for any reason you need to take a break or leave, let us know. We want to respect your time. But you've done so much for Liberty that it's hard to know where to start when it comes to your introduction. You're head of Laissez-Faire Books. You're an author, an editor, a distinguished fellow of the Foundation for Economic Education, and now the Chief Liberty Officer for Liberty.me. Is there anything I missed of that you'd like to add and let everyone know who you are?
That's all in the past, and nobody cares about the past anyway. All that matters is what we do in the future.
Sure. Well, there's been a lot of talk about Liberty.me. I was wondering what this project means to you, and what's the big takeaway that people can get from it as opposed to existing social media like Facebook or Twitter. Is it accurate to assume that you saw something lacking in the Liberty community that makes Liberty.me necessary?
My love of what I've done began with a love of technology, because I've seen for years how if you have the right technology, you can inspire amazing creativity and create new worlds. And I believe very strongly in technology. It always surprises us. We think it's just a gizmo, then the gizmo turns into revolutions, you know? They're always bigger than what you think. So I looked around at all the spaces that have been created, and I saw they were all inadequate compared to what was actually possible. It was about this time last year that I had been out of web development for about 2 years, because when I went to Laissez-Faire, they said, look, your strength is as a writer, as an editor, as a curator of books. I'm like, okay, fine. So that's what I did, but I couldn't get the techno bug out of me, and I began to look around at what was possible, and it blew my mind. In the course of 2 years, multi-site blogging capacities had gone from 100 for $100,000 to $1 million for practically for free. You know, forums have become extremely effective and beautifully constructed. Social networking, you know, people don't understand this, but you know, there have been many open source software developers who have replicated Facebook functionality you know, all over the open source world, and I began to explore those things, and I was blown away. I'm like, why don't we have our own social network?
Right.
And in terms of book distribution, things I had done a tremendous amount of work in the previous 10 years to ferret out what books were actually available to us on the open source. And I really wanted to have high quality editions distributed in the EPUB format, which, you know, thanks to e-readers that have become, you know, $100 at Walmart, anybody could get all the great classics of Liberty. And I thought, what if we combine all these things into one and actually ask for community involvement and crowdsourcing knowledge, and not like be just a producer and a teacher, but actually become a community so we can all learn together, because I believe in that. I believe in crowdsourcing information. And I'm appalled at some levels when I look at the world of Liberty and see how many brilliant intellectuals there are out there who don't have a voice. And it's always bothered me. Like, why do we have so many big shots who keep saying the same damn thing over and over again? But meanwhile, all the creativity is happening at this grassroots level among all these activists and like cool people. They don't get a platform. They don't have a platform, and they're not known. But they're smarter than all the top professors and gurus. So how can I put together a program, a digital city where these people actually can have a voice and can feel empowered and can contribute their ideas to creating a revolution, you know? So my dream was to smash all these ideas into one platform. And I didn't know how it was going to happen, but I can tell you I became like wildly obsessed with the idea. I mean, it was like keeping me up all night, pacing, talking to friends, ruining every lunch conversation and dinner party, for sure. You know, with obsessive focus on this idea of creating this digital city. Because I knew it could happen. And that was like only 1 year ago. And then come fall, I had by this time decided to get serious. You know, I became a student and wrote up a business plan and actually began to look at its economic viability. And came up with a pretty nice little plan, which I distributed dozens of copies to all the top money bags I knew. And it was funny because you know, people with money are old and don't understand technology, and the people who understand technology are young and don't have money. So it became a serious problem for me as a person who's trying to propose a venture capitalist project. And I thought about, I'm sorry I'm going on too long, but I thought about going to one of these incubator programs and learning, but I thought, you know, that's probably a waste of time. What I'm talking about doing has never been done before, and I don't even trust the people in the industry, really. I imagined that something that was possible that doesn't currently exist, and also I knew for a fact that everyone would tell me it was not viable. I knew this, that they would tell me, don't do this is stupid. I just knew this. And like, entrepreneurship's weird. It's like if you just do what's already been done, you're not really an entrepreneur. Right. So you have to reach out and do the thing that's not been done. Mm-hmm. But if it's not been done, everybody's going to tell you it can't be done. I mean, that's just the way the world works. Right. I finally found some investors that were willing to consider this whole approach, and we started building in October. And now we're 1 week into beta, and like all my dreams have come true. It's better than I ever imagined. The community is so flippin' happy. I can't even describe it to you. I don't know how many people who are at this room were fortunate enough to get in this crowdfunding campaign have been in the beta, but we've got about 1,200 people in there now, and like we're the happiest people.
Very nice. That's awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah, it's really cool to be among your friends. And to be a real community that's working towards like a determined goal. God knows what's going to happen. I mean, I can't even predict what's going to happen, putting all these voices together. I think the great problem of the liberty movement today is despair, and this like wipes it away. It creates a sense of hope and a sense of friendship and a sense of community for everybody there. And I've been so gratified over the last several days to see all my hellish life that I've lived over the last 6 months sort of pay off for other people. You know, yeah. It's been really invigorating and very exciting. But I can tell you, 6 months of 16 hours of work a day has been a little bit overwhelming, and there have been times when I really wondered whether I'd ever see it come to fruition. But I stand here now, Saturday night. We're 1 week away from public release, and we're all having a great time inside the beta community.
That is good, and not to mention all the running around you've been doing at different conferences and everything.
Yeah, I just got back from. I did a whirlwind trip from Melbourne, Australia, over to Brazil. And then up to Toronto, and my cough comes about because on the airplane on my way to Toronto, I sat next to a social worker, and she's a very embittered, dedicated statist, and I'm certain that she deliberately gave me this disease. So I'm still trying to get that.
That's hilarious. Yeah. When I first met you, I got to be honest, I was a little intimidated to come up to you, but I was glad to see that you are as intellectual as you are down to earth. So I really appreciated that. And when you came over to our booth, I sold you a candle, and I asked you about agorism. My friend Derek Bros from Houston, yeah, the one that you couldn't hear me at first, and I had to repeat myself.
I was reading this monograph, and I was like deeply. The video is so funny because you could see I was like. Reading, you're like trying to get my attention, and I thought, what is it?
Yeah. He was like, hey, if you get Jeffrey Tucker over here, I'll film him. You ask him about agorism. So that's exactly what we did, and I was very surprised to hear that you gave a very eloquent endorsement of the idea. Well, not surprised, I was happy to hear that you did.
Sure.
And what first attracted you to Agorist ideas, and how did you come to realize its importance?
Frustration. I mean, like everybody, I began with political activism, and it's a little goofy because when you don't understand how the world works, you actually believe all the lies. You think my political ideas matter, and I came to the ideas of liberty. I thought, wow, now I have these cool ideas, and I can change the world. And the way to do that is through politics. And so I got involved in a campaign, and I still look back at those days, thinking about all the time I wasted doing that idiotic thing. And then at some point you realize that this is not really working out. And so then I changed, and I decided that education was important. Just reading lots of books, spreading ideas, and that's great. And I don't regret any of that. But now I realize, looking back at that, you can't forever stay in that stage. It's important to learn, but then the question is, what are we learning for?
Right.
How do these ideas affect our lives? What do we do then? And then the very next step then becomes really obvious. We have to build our own liberty out of our own activities in our own lives, and that's the only way we're going to change ourselves, our community, and the world. I strongly believe this now.
Yeah. Well, what would you just say to someone who believed that we could vote our way to freedom? And on that point, you think it's possible, or in our strategic interest, to, in our counter-economic efforts, to combine that maybe with a little bit of parliamentary political activism? Or
well, I never like to put down people who get like self-satisfaction out of political organizing. There's some people who for them it's like a wonderful good. It's like some people are vegetarians, and the people like me like to eat McDonald's double quarter pounders, and that's great. So it's a personal preference, and I wouldn't want to put that down. But if they think that this is going to change the world, my answer is pretty much what Emma Goldman said. If voting could change the system, they would make it illegal.
I like that.
Yeah, that's what she said. I guess part of me thinks that if you feel it's your calling to get involved in politics, I'm not going to be here the one to tell you not to. But here's what creeps me out slightly about politics. It creates a kind of a collectivist mentality and an authoritarian mentality. So you have to throw yourself into a party, and you have to believe everything the party's doing. And if you get squeamish about it, there's always somebody there to tell you, listen, politics is the art of compromise. Everybody has to give a little. It's time for you to give. And so it's like the devil talking to you. You're like, well, okay, I see your point, So you always end up sort of compromising your moral principles in politics. The other thing is you end up following a leader. You end up following one figure who's standing behind a microphone promising beautiful things. And you have to trust this person, to carry out your wishes. And I'm just not that trustworthy. I don't believe in third-party control of life. I believe in a peer-to-peer control. Right. That's what freedom is all about, peer-to-peer. Politics is about outsourcing our freedom to some third party whom we're asked to trust, and I think that's just a mistake. One thing that's very interesting about American politics that I find intriguing is that we're always asked to vote on people, not issues. You ever notice that?
Yeah.
At the state level and local level, sometimes there are bond issues, things like that. They almost always go down to feet. People always vote for freedom, more or less. Not always, but a lot of the time. But at the national level, at the state level, you're not actually asked to vote on issues. You're asked to vote for people, to represent you.
Right.
We have no control over what they do after that point. Once you vote for them, that's the end of the day. And that's a crazy kind of system. It's very interesting to me. We tend to be a very distrustworthy people. You go to the used car lot, and the guy says, "This is a great car, low mileage. It's only had one owner, and it's very cheap. It's selling below the Blue Book price." Well, we have to verify everything he says because we don't trust him. Our politicians, we have no other choice but to trust everything they say, and it's crazy. Like, I'd far rather trust a person with a used cars lot than I would any politician, ever. And the other thing that's a little bit strange about the American system is that that it's not even clear to the extent to which our elected officials actually control the system. The system is built by large nation-state style bureaucracies of unelected bureaucrats following laws passed by dead white men, 40, 50, 100 years ago.
Right.
Over which we have no control whatsoever. Here's what's a mistake. To dedicate yourself to changing something over which you have no control whatsoever.
Right.
That will lead you to despair. It's just crazy. It's a little like dedicating myself to wishing my neighbor would paint his house green. You know? Yeah, and I'm going to believe this every single day. I'm going to believe it and believe it and believe it. I'm going to read about green and read about houses and read, you know.
You're right.
In the end, whether the house is green is up to the owner, all right? The state owns the political system. We need to realize this. We are not the owners of the political system. The state owns the political system.
Yeah.
The sooner you realize this, the sooner you'll stop wasting your time with those preposterous kind of efforts and get to work building your own liberty in your own life.
Yeah, absolutely. One obvious way we can take control of our lives, I think, is Bitcoin, of course. What role could Bitcoin play in the counter economy, and what does its existence mean for the future of gold or silver?
Well, I can tell you, let me first of all say what Bitcoin means to me individually. It was a revelation because I've been studying money and banking for many years, and I never imagined there would come a time when the markets would reinvent money in a way that was viable to create a global currency that wasn't managed by anybody, that was peer-to-peer, protected our identities, and actually could compete with the global dollar standard. I never even imagined something like that was true, and that's wonderful because I'd always been an advocate of the gold standard. Mm-hmm. And so when Bitcoin came along, I was in a state of shock, really. And what it shows us is that the markets are smarter than any one of us as individuals, you know? Mm-hmm. I mean, they have a greater degree of brilliance built into them, so they always surprise us and always amaze us with their capacity to surpass our highest expectations, and Bitcoin is a great example of that. So I was a skeptic for like a while, for a couple of years, and then I became an owner of it, and it all began to change. I began to study it, and I was blown away at the power of markets to create global upheaval, and Bitcoin is just the greatest example of that. It's so superior as a technology to any national money. And let me backtrack just slightly and point out something very, very important. Money is nationalized by the state right now, and it has been for at least the last 100 years. And what does that mean? It hasn't improved, it's gotten worse. It's not kept up with the times. It's not a market commodity, it's a kind of nationalized fascistic institution. So it's inferior. And it was, now in retrospect it's obvious, that it was just crying out for somebody to come up with something better. Mm-hmm. And so going from the dollar to Bitcoin is a little like moving from the Model T to a Maserati. You know, it's like leapfrogging 100 years of technological development. Mm-hmm. We have been living in the dark, you know, and if you know economics, you know that for any one product or service to replace a dominant product or service, it has to overcome the network effect. People are naturally inclined to go along with what they're already doing, even if the new product is better. The new product or service has to be like vastly better in order to overcome the network effect. But Bitcoin is vastly better. You know, no transaction fees, virtually instant transmission, geographically not contiguous property all over the world, transferring value through digital means. It's got all the qualities of money, except that it's also weightless and it's spaceless and allows every person to be his or her own banker. That is unbelievable. The ease with which it makes economic life possible and fluid and peer-to-peer, and how it liberates people who are unbanked, live outside the banned IP ranges, or aren't close, don't have a credit card, is beautiful. I really think it's the greatest tool of liberation in our age, and possibly the greatest invention, in the last 1,000 years or something. I think it's that powerful, and once people discover it, it'll take a while, but once they discover it, I don't see how national monies can possibly compete. I think it'll eventually replace national monies in our daily transactions, even for the bourgeoisie, for everyone.
Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of that, do you have any predictions? I know you said at the Bitcoin conference you don't like to make predictions, but I mean, can you loosely tell us what you think about our evolution into a stateless society? Because it's inevitable, really. And also, is there any advice you'd be comfortable with sharing with those who are interested with this hands-on agorist approach to libertarianism, or maybe some precautions you think we should take?
Well, I mean, I guess one precaution and one piece of advice. The precaution is to never trust the state under any circumstances. Even if you're tempted, even if you meet a nice bureaucrat, even if there's an agency that seems to be crying out that it can help you with your problem, stay away if you can possibly avoid it. Stay away from government agents. Never trust them, even the nicest ones. Stay off lists if you can possibly do it. Don't use them. I mean, I would rather. I always want to avoid entanglements with the government because you almost always lose. Sometimes people find themselves believing that they can win under the right conditions. The system is rigged, and I think the sooner we realize that, the better off we are. So part of maintaining your freedom and independence is just to stay as far away from the state as possible. And we're tempted every day, in ways we don't always realize.
Right.
To into the plan, so you can avoid the plan. I prefer staying off employee health style systems of insurance because I think that's a compromise of your independence. Stay out of debt insofar as possible, because insofar as you're in debt, you're owned by bankers, and you don't have the freedom to move around and make judgments the way you should. Stay away from the state insofar as it's absolutely possible. It's dangerous to get close to that institution. So that's my precaution. Namely, that you probably won't win if you fight authority. You have to be clever and wise and stay away as far as possible. On the positive side, the beautiful thing about loving liberty and loving your independence and believing in the possibility of a social order that organizes itself is that you begin to look for new opportunities that you otherwise might have missed. That's extremely important. We're surrounded by beautiful opportunities, but we have to have the personal courage to disrupt our own lives and take that step. Sometimes it means foregoing a really comfortable income, or a very comfortable, nice neighborhood you live in, or a job that is fine, it's not great, and stepping out into the uncertain future. I always like to think of history like this. It's like where we are right now is a great dividing point. Right now is now. Everything that came before is known. Everything that's going to come in the future is uncertain. And it's a beautiful opportunity. The future is for our own making, but we have to grab hold of it and make it for ourselves. If we just are satisfied with the status quo in our lives, we are passing up possibly beautiful opportunities. And sometimes to have great things happen to us requires that we throw out all the things that are making us comfortable. Right. And take a wild risk into the future. I've never once regretted having done that. Something always wonderful emerges on the other end. If you believe in your potential as an individual and the hope for the future and the fact that the future of our lives is not already written, then you're in a very small minority of the percentage of population, and you can cause great things to happen. But sometimes it takes special kind of courage and special kind of risk-taking tolerance to do it. I think the worst thing we can do in our lives is be satisfied with the status quo. But look for opportunities, leap into the unknown future, and just see what happens. I can tell you in my own life, it's always paid off in every possible way. I've done a lot of really new and cool things, but I think we've just begun. I feel like with Liberty Me, I had my investors tell me, they said to me, at the end of this process, you're either going to be appreciated as an entrepreneur, or you're going to be a disgrace and a laughingstock. Okay? That was a terrifying message to me, personally. Absolutely terrifying. But I decided that life's not worth living unless you're willing to act on your ideals.
Right.
You know what else? You know what's great too about believing in human liberty? Liberty works. It works for the whole of society, and it works for us as individuals. If you trust that, you believe it in your heart, you believe it with your mind, you can go out and practice that and see amazing things happen. And I promise you, if you live like this, you will discover things you never imagined. Even your wildest dreams will be surpassed. I really strongly believe that. And if we do that all as a community, we're going to remake our lives, and I think we're going to remake society.
Awesome. Good. Why is anything less than anarchism uncivilized? There's the famous meme of you sort of gazing into the distance, statuesque.
Well, it's a little funny because it turns out, once you look at the state is just this big parasite. Basically, it wants your stuff, and that's pretty much it. I mean, that's what it does. It takes your stuff, and it takes your life, and it takes your liberty. It makes no positive contribution to civilization at all. Civilization is what we've built. I mean, everything you love about your life are things that flow out of your own human agency and your volition as an individual. The government's not doing anything for you at all. Not right now, not ever. And if you believe otherwise, it's because you believe in a lie. That's just what's true. It's a gang of thieves, and nothing more than that. They're not protecting us, they're not securing us, they're not improving our well-being, they're not making us holy, they're not helping us get to heaven, they're not doing any of that shit, So, civilization has always been built by human hands, and those human hands have been the ones that are interacting with other people on a mutually voluntary basis. Human beings making their own choices about their own life. Cooperating with others, that's what builds civilization. So that's why anything less than anarchism is absolutely uncivilized. It just makes the world a more violent place. I mean, that's all the state really does. People fear anarchy, and I don't know why. I always tell people that anarchy is really just all the stuff you love in life without all the stuff you hate. That's basically it. Yeah. It's all the cool things without the shitty things. That's it.
I don't think you're thinking about the roads, Mr. Tucker. Come on, get real. All right, well, hey, I think we're going to open it up for a Q&A now, if you don't mind.
That's fine.
But before we do that, is there anything else that we didn't cover that you'd really like to share with us in relation to our conversation tonight?
Oh, I don't know. You caught me at a very interesting time, because I'm like crazy happy about what's just happened. I've been in this Liberty Me community now for about 4 days. I just gave my second class, in this cool new teaching platform, and I'm just like wild with excitement about what I've seen happen. You just can't imagine what it's like to see your dream come true. It's like, there's just nothing like it. I'm so happy. I'm happy not because of what we've already achieved, but because I feel like we have now really an infrastructure that's going to explode and become amazing beyond my wildest expectations. And I just didn't, I don't know, it was funny for me, I have to tell you, it was terrifying when I first began to see the whole thing come together. And this was about 3 weeks ago, right before we went into closed beta. I looked at this city that we'd made, and I'm wandering around in there alone. And I thought, I swear to you, I thought, what have I done? This is insane. What possessed me to do this? And I couldn't really remember. And I felt a sense of terror, wandering around in this gigantic land. By myself, thinking, this didn't exist a year ago, and now it does. And it was a sense of like really like a self-doubt, like, why did I do this? Why did I come to this place in my life? And I talked to my investors about it. They're like, their first question was, wait a minute. You're the guy who's supposed to have the answers to that question. Why are you asking us? Right? And but it was brief, because soon afterwards we put in the final little pieces and opened up to the pre-subscribers, and to see everybody just like pouring in. I can only describe it like this. It's like the first day of an amusement park. It's been closed all winter. And then it's supposed to be like late spring, and suddenly the first day comes and all the cars are in the parking lot, everybody's waiting at the gate. And you start taking tickets. and everybody rushes in, and it's just madness, right? Suddenly all the rides are running, and everybody's having a wonderful time, and then you can just stand back and see the happiness that resulted. And that's the way I felt the last 3 days. It's been a beautiful thing. So thank you for all your support for this project.
Yeah, absolutely. And when did you say that was going to come out again? Approximately next week?
Yeah, that's when we're going to be public. Right now, we're all just kind of chortling inside the chat rooms and discussion forums because we get to hang out around there as this little private community. It's a little bit goofy and sort of mischievous that we feel this way. But yeah, we'll be open in about a week. You know what's funny too is I've used so much inferior technology over the last 2 years. So many things that like sort of work but not really work, and now. With Liberty Me, I was able to use all my experience in this to kind of like put only the things that really, really work and integrate them all together in a single authentication system, you know. So you can be at the forums, you can download the books, you can have books discussions with people, you can be on the chat room, you can enter into a classroom, and you can friend people and have private discussions and private IMs, and just like, it's endless. And everybody's sort of hopeful and friendly and striving to do good things. So thank you for letting me go on about that. And let me also tell you that your candle, you know,
Yeah.
This is the eucalyptus candle, you remember?
Yes. Yeah.
Did I tell you that I bought this candle for a particular person?
You leaned over the table and told me my first secret. I was extremely flattered, actually.
Okay, and you didn't reveal it tonight, did you?
No, I didn't tell it. Well, I mean, we've actually talked about it on the radio show before, the crypto show here.
Okay.
But yes, tell a story.
Okay. If you don't mind, it's a little bit embarrassing, but I have a koala.
Okay.
And they love eucalyptus, right? The koala, I admit, is not a real koala, it is stuffed.
Okay. We have all been wondering that, actually.
It's a stuffed koala. And I just had some sense that the stuffed koala needed eucalyptus.
That is awesome. No, I can't.
But that's why I bought it, and I almost got it taken away by the TSA. It was so funny because they pulled it out of my bag and they said, "This can't go." And I said, "No, you don't understand. You know, this is
My koala.
This is from my koala." And they're like, "Your koala?" I said, "Yeah. Eucalyptus, smell it." So they took the lid off that I put on top of it and smelled it. They were like amazed at the smell. And I said, "Look, it's not even liquid, right? I mean, it can go." And so it was like one agent was like so puzzled or charmed or something by this idiotic story that she actually like said, "Okay, you can take it and put it back in my bag," and I was able to get it home. So.
That's awesome. I couldn't figure out whether or not it was like the squishy part at the top that got you in trouble, or if it was the anarchist A on the back of the bag.
I couldn't wait to see the look on my koala's face when he smelled it. I should have Snapchatted it.
That's hilarious. That is so funny. So you got to shed a light on the TSA's tyranny with my.
Yeah, that's right.
Awesome.
That was almost spirited.
Thank you for that. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. I mean, like it smells up the whole room. It's really.
Good. There you go. You heard it by my candle smoke.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, that was great. That was a great day. Thank you for doing that for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if anyone wants to come up and ask a question for Mr. Tucker, feel free to just walk up to the mic up here instead of yelling. If you have any question at all about agorism, Bitcoin, anarchism, anything of that sort. Harlan Dietrich is coming up right now.
Mr. Tucker, what is this on? Hello? Okay. Is that better?
Yeah.
I was just going to say, Mr. Tucker, congratulations on your new baby you've birthed into the world, Liberty.me. That's a huge accomplishment, and I can't wait to take part in it. I have, I guess, two questions. The first question is, if it truly is a city, an online city, there will certainly be commerce involved in that city. How exactly will people make these arrangements, and will there be certain rules on this sort of commerce? How is that? How will that be sort of securely done through Liberty.me?
Yeah.
There's
Yeah, I wish I had answers to all those questions, but I mean, my first impulse is, because I've been asked this a lot, I mean, every member gets a full WordPress install. And I'm not sure if I went into this, but I saw so many people trying to develop websites over the years and they just flop. So I thought, let's crowdsource all of our mental power and put all the websites under one single domain, and you have your own subdomain. So every member gets a full WordPress install, fully integrated into the site, so you can benefit from the SEO and then also run your own site. And it's just so cool, it's so empowering in some ways. I'm just one of already, I think we've already got, there may be 300-400 different publishing sites that have already been created. I'm just so excited about it. I'm just one of them, and it's where I want to be. And people have asked if they could sell things, and it's like, what's a city without commerce? Of course, that's the whole idea. I want it to be a marketplace too. And you're free to use any outside plugins to collect money, put PayPal there. Part of your profile on Liberty.me is a Bitcoin address, and that's embedded into the program itself. So I want commerce to be part of this world. Every time I go into a new city, I try to imagine, this is a fun thing to do, try to imagine this place without commerce. Like, take away every shop, every merchant, every bar, every restaurant, every tourist trap, take them all away and look at what you see. What you see is death, basically. It's just horrible and terrifying and soul killing.
And the tax office, which is dead.
So I want commerce to be part of Liberty.me. That's not why I made it, but I think it's an absolutely essential component. So, and I think it's going to benefit all the members of the community. People want to be able to buy a eucalyptus candle for their stuffed koala bears. I mean, that's really important. We've got to be able to do that. I wanted to create that environment that you feel when you go to a great conference, and I hate that. You go to the conference, you love the conference, you're around your friends, you're hearing great speeches, you're buying cool stuff. And then you go home and you're just kind of sad. It's like, oh, now my life's kind of no good anymore. Well, why can't we make this feeling last forever? And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to create an environment where that feeling, that best feeling you've ever had at the best conference you've ever attended, lasts and lasts. And part of that is commerce. So absolutely. As far as the rules, yeah, I can see some potential problems, but I haven't seen them yet. So, I mean, we don't all want to end up like my friend Ross Ulbricht. But I want to be as liberal as possible. I mean, part of the founding goal of this was no more gatekeepers, I don't believe in those systems anymore. I got tired of begging places to publish my articles and getting past editors who didn't understand what I was saying. I think we need to all take responsibility for what we sell and what we do. So that's the founding mission of Liberty.me is to give maximum control to the individuals involved. So of course we have terms of use that are, I think, very reasonable and everybody would agree with. But I want maximum liberality within that framework, just to create our own civilization. So please, I look forward to your participation.
Well, there will definitely probably be a Brave New Books page on Liberty.me, so laissez-faire won't be alone on Liberty.me. But second question is a little unrelated, but I've been dying to ask you for years. If I were to have bourbon for breakfast, what bourbon would you recommend?
My question. It's a little funny. People think that I must be a snob about these things, but I'm actually not. I mean, I actually like the cheapest, worst rock gut bourbon you can possibly ever imagine. And this always disappoints people when I tell them that, one of my favorite bourbons I like to drink is called Rebel Yell. Actually, it's really tough, really strong, and really hits you really hard. And I like to put it in coffee first thing in the morning. And if you're a skeptic of this idea of having bourbon first thing in the morning, I can only just recommend you try it because it's actually a wonderful thing. I mean, you get up first thing in the morning, pour your cup of coffee, put a shot of bourbon into the coffee and drink it. It's like, oh my God. I don't know, it's like your body has just been crying out for this. it's weird. It's like it's like your whole constitution is just like warmed and comforted, prepared for the day in some way. It's amazing, and it doesn't get you like inebriated in some weird way. You don't have like, you don't sober up suddenly at 10 o'clock or something like that. It just introduces the day in a beautiful, warm, comforting, lovely way. Prepares you for a wonderful day of work. Yeah.
And that recommendation was Rebel Yell. Did I hear?
Yeah.
Rebel Yell. Oh, there's irony in that if you look for it, right there. That's
Yeah.
Great. That's great.
Oh yeah.
There we go. All right. Well, that was my question. Anybody else? Yep.
We got another one coming up.
Hello. You spoke about classrooms and classes and educational materials available on liberty.me. Can you go into that a little more? I was unfamiliar with the concept.
Oh yeah. So you know that for years people trying to do online classrooms. You probably noticed in school. You know, there's the Blackbaud and WebEx and GoToMeeting, and I think Adobe has its own product, and they're all just terrible. I mean, I teach these things all the time, and it's like, here's your login code, put in this special thing and download this plugin, whoops, it doesn't work on Mac, and so on. You know, it's like there's no end to the problems. So when we were shopping for a real online classroom software, I went to some friends of mine who are actually like anarchists, actually, and they've been doing this startup, and it's called eprof.com. And it's an enterprise-based solution, and it's like really edgy and out there, but there's nothing to download. It works in every browser environment. And I had taught there and using their thing before, about a year ago, as just a beta tester. And I was just blown away. And I called them up and said, would you be willing to work with us? And they said, oh gosh, yes. So they jumped into it, and they have given us their software to run on LibertyMe. So we've hired a classroom manager who's going to be running basically daily classes on every kind of topic, you know, from you know, how to raise your own food to, you know, Bloomberg's theory of capital, you know, you name it. We want to fill up 365 days of daily classrooms where you just jump in. As a member, you can join in the classroom every single day if you want to, or never, or just once a week, or do whatever you want. Essentially, probably we're going to be running 2 or 3 classes a day from now on. But I just love it because I'm the only one who's used it so far. We've only run 2 classes. I guess I ran one. This is Saturday, so I ran one Thursday night, and I ran another one today, and it was just great because you just like go to a single URL, and suddenly I'm there online. I'm able to show YouTube videos and talk over them. You know, I can write on the chalkboard. There's chat messages. Anyone in the classroom wants to answer a question, I just click on the name. Their face appears with the audio, and they're able to address the whole classroom. Or I can have like 10 people with video there, and the classroom itself will hold up to 10,000 people. So it's like crazy stuff. It's absolutely beautiful. I've never used a technology in a classroom setting that's as good as this one. I'm thrilled that we have it. And you know, again, this is another thing that's only available to us now. So many of these technologies are just like pouring down our heads, and to me, it's like crazy that we wouldn't use them. You know, we have this new frontier that's been given to this generation right now. And people 50 or 100 years are going to go, or 100 years from now are going to be looking back going, what did you guys do with this cool stuff? Did you jump on it and use it for the cause of civilization, liberty, and human empowerment? Or did you just kind of like, just blow it off, you know? So I just wanted to put every technology that I could into this city. And it's more amazing every day. And what's cool is it's only going to get better. I actually can't even imagine how eProf could have gotten better. I was thrilled to teach today. It was just such an incredible kick. I'm hoping that it'll eventually just replace all classes. You know, I mean, why not? It's that good. I think you'll just be thrilled about it. But it's one of the least advertised aspects of LibertyMe. I don't know how many of you watched the video. When I was trying to raise money, because you know what happened, right? I had started building in October, and by December I wasn't finished, and my investors were coming to me going, you know, your burn rate is insane, you're spending an insane amount of money, we don't have shit to show for it. So what are you going to do about this? So I was like, okay, we got to crowdfund. You know, we've got to get out there and tell investors what we're up to and see if we can get pre-subscribes. So I made this video where I was kind of wandering through a park and swinging on swings and riding on the rides, and we finally jumped in the lake. And we ended up raising about $200,000 with that, and that got us all the way to where we are today. Thank God for it. But I'm so grateful to all the contributors. But in the course of that video, I had to kind of make a lot of promises. Like, here's what's coming, and I was exuberant and optimistic as I possibly could. But I watched that video again 2 days ago, and I realized I radically understated the services that would eventually be available. Like, I don't even think I mentioned the online classroom aspect of it in that video. It's much better than I imagined it could be. And that's really a cool feeling. You know, when you get into commerce, you know what it's all like. It's like when you sold me that candle, you know, it's like, you want it to be a really great candle, you know? If I go home with a kind of a crappy product, I'm not going to think good about the service. And I feel this way with Liberty Me. Like, I want every person who joins as a member to just be like totally overwhelmed and just be like happy every second that he or she made that decision to come in and join us. And I want to be held accountable for that. Because why? I mean, basically it's that drive to serve, and that drive to create beautiful things and make the world a better place. And how you know you're doing that is when the consumers come to you and say, this is great. And that's a wonderful sense of satisfaction. And we all live for that. That's what I live for. That's what I want to hear. That's what I want to do. I want to see people living freer lives as a result of this commercial venture.
Good stuff, good stuff. Well, we probably have room for maybe a question or two left.
Okay.
I think, Scott, you wanted to ask a question or any? No? Maybe? No?
I will ask him for me. Ask him if anybody in his 1,200 people so far have talked about homeschooling with that classroom.
Oh God, yeah, homeschooling. Yeah, we've got, I had a person write, we have one of our guides is on homeschooling. That's really good. We've got 2 or 3 homeschooling groups that have already been created, like members are able to create specials and invite people to be part of their group. So we have 2 or 3 homeschooling groups. I saw one big thread on the discussion forums that are all about homeschooling already. So yeah, it's a huge topic. Alternative education like that. I mean, let's face it, this sort of modern movement of do-it-yourself liberty began with homeschooling, probably in the 1970s in many ways, you know? So that's a gigantic part of our mission to promote that and push that. And I know there are many homeschooling forums out there, but not all of them are like dedicated to liberty as a first principle. So, and also along with that, parenting guides and other things. I really love all these topics. You know, it's just really great. It's a wonderful thing when you suddenly realize that there are things you can do in your life to achieve your ideals. That's an extraordinary thing. You don't have to just sit around waiting for the government to give you your rights. You know, that's a great revelation. It changed my life, you know, and it was so gradual for me. I know that like Sam Conkin back in the old days saw this and understood this, but I wasn't reading him, you know. I mean, he kind of like wasn't on my radar. So I had to discover this, you know, through, you know, a lot of struggle through the years. But it doesn't matter. I'm just glad I've arrived at that point now today.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, I think we'll probably call it a night unless anyone else has any other question that they can think of. The famous Jeffrey Tucker.
Will you ask him what book he would recommend for somebody to read?
Sure.
Jeffrey's World.
Yeah.
What book do you recommend?
For now, I'm really enthusiastic, like as a basic primer on human liberty, like the problems and the solutions. There's a book that came out, and I think it was 1957, by a great old anarchist named Frank Chodoroff. He was the founder of what's now called the Intercollegiate Scholastic Institute. I think it's called Intercollegiate Scholastic Institute, ISI. But when he founded it, it was called the International Society of Individualists, which is a really interesting name. But he had been kind of a big figure in the 1930s and the 40s. And by the 1957, nobody cared about what the anarchists were saying. It was a grim time, Cold War. National Review was being founded, the early neoconservatives, and the libertarians were having a hard time of it. And he was kind of forgotten, but his last book was called The Rise and Decline of Society. And when I found it a few years ago, I was amazed to see that I couldn't find any reviews of this book. Not even Murray Rothbard had read it. It wasn't in his personal library. It was just published and got, it maybe just circulated a very, very small number, but it was his last work. It was the culminating work of his life. And in so many ways, this book is not long, but it combines economics with politics, with sociology and personal psychology and a plan for the future, which is so Agorist. It's just so lovely right at the end. And it's got a beautiful description about the reality of the state that's more sophisticated than I've read in any of the public choice literature. It's called The Rise and Fall of Society, not decline, The Rise and Fall of Society by Frank Chodoroff. I think it's the single greatest primer on a sort of what I would consider a bourgeois anarchist outlook on life. So if you haven't read it, I strongly encourage you to read it. He's such a clear writer too, His prose is so crystalline and evocative. And also it helps that it's a little bit obscure. So, there's some great books that have been lost to history, and that's one of them. I guess I would give that as my number one recommendation today. Yeah.
Cool.
But we've got 100 books now on the site. I went through and picked them out very, very carefully for that reason. Just knowing which ones. I didn't want to duplicate efforts, and I didn't choose things immediately like Human Action. Okay, it's 1,000 pages, it's a great book, but who's going to read 1,000 pages? I picked the 100 books I thought would be most accessible, most useful, and most diverse. So, because I knew that I wanted to start with 100 books, but we're releasing at least a book a week from now on. It's probably going to be 2 or 3 books a week, and I want to get up to 200, 300, 400, 500. And again, I'm not just interested in distributing books. I want to distribute crowdsourced information about books. So if you're reading the book, it would be fun for you to go into discussion forums and highlight quotations you like. Upload your live blog about the book as a kind of a personal discipline. I love live blogging books, questionnaires and quizzes about the book, anything, so that every book will have a kind of apparatus that comes along with it that'll be crowdsourced, so you can help others. So it's not just that you help yourself, but then you can help others discover this book in the way that you did, and then they can add to your knowledge. So the book becomes much greater than just a text that you download. It becomes a whole school of thought, That was the idea. And isn't it weird? That sounds really obvious when you say it now, but as far as I know, nobody's really done this. And it's just embedded in the software. I'm just so excited about that,
We're all really looking forward to that. Actually, I think we have 2 more questions. Ryan, you have one?
Yeah, me. Yeah.
Two more questions, and then I'll let you plug, where we can follow you and what you have coming up next. Other than we done.
I mean, I've dominated this whole hour with what must sound like a commercial. I'm sorry about that, but
no, it's all right.
Yeah, it's been such an exciting thing for me. So any questions you have on anything is fine. Yeah.
So. This is Ryan. I'm one of the hosts of the Crypto Show over here, and one of the, I guess, right-hand man of Brave New Books here. But one of the questions, and I guess it's kind of an abstract, but it's something that's been floating around in my mind lately, is we now see, lately the rise of a decentralized form of currency. We see with 3D printing the rise of quite potentially a decentralized form of manufacturing. And so to me it seems to follow that the next step may well be the rise of decentralized corporations, decentralized commerce.
Yeah.
I mean, and what got me thinking about it was sort of like the e-cigs, for example, the electronic cigarette industry. Here's something that's been around for 10 years and is a great example of deregulated, unregulated industry working, with prices coming down, quality going up, providing more jobs, so on and so forth. But of course we see the World Health Organization and such wanting to get involved. I guess what thoughts, and like I said, it's kind of an abstract, but what thoughts do you have towards this idea of this evolution of business coming forth with these tools that are becoming available now with decentralized commerce, decentralized money, decentralized manufacturing towards the aims of decentralized corporations. Because if this becomes something that becomes viable, that becomes relevant, then what of regulations?
Exactly. With the decentralized distributed model, the state has met its match. That's the most extraordinary thing to observe about our times. It's the great technology. The state is physical, it is geographic. The decentralized network is digital and global and can't be crushed. And that's an extraordinary thing. So in the end, the state cannot control it. All of humanity, since the dawn of time, has looked for such a technology, something that would evade those who would steal our stuff and could try to control our lives, to get away from that authority that rules the physical world. And finally, with distributed networks, we found that thing. It's a beautiful thing. All the governments in the world could conspire on the same day, same hour, same minute to try to crush something like Bitcoin or a CAD file that prints a gun, and they still can't do it. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. It's an amazing thing to consider. And that's a gift to our generation, and I think it foreshadows a very beautiful future. Everything that's truly anti-fragile and truly durable that's going to define our future is going to live on a distributed network. And it's going to be distributed peer-to-peer. And that's a beautiful thing. I mean, it's the essence of anarchy. There's a game that I like to play at the pizza store called the whack-a-mole, where these little heads pop up and you hit one, This is the way I think about the state trying to crush, the nodes of a decentralized network, They hit one with a hammer and another one just immediately pops up, and the game goes on forever and ever and ever until all the resources are exhausted and they finally realize to give up and admit that the reactionary anachronistic dinosaur that the state truly is. That's how I see the history unfolding. It's a beautiful gift of our generation, and it's lovely. Decentralized corporations, absolutely. I mean, what's the time frame we're looking at here? I've thought about this. It took about 20 years for email to go from being, this weird little geeky technology to the point that your great aunt, is sending you emails. But history's on fast forward now. Everything's moving much more quickly. It was only about a year and a half ago that the interest in Bitcoin was tiny. There were very few merchants, very little support infrastructure. Merely 18 months later, we have thousands, even tens of thousands of merchants that are involved in building the infrastructure and hundreds of thousands of retail outlets that are accepting Bitcoin. It's been that quick. Bitcoin has gone from nothing to globally epic in a mere 5 years. It's amazing. So how long before the decentralized autonomous corporation really takes hold? I don't know. I think we're living through very, very exciting times. I wake up every day, throw the covers off and say, what amazing thing has happened overnight while I was asleep? And almost every day there's something unbelievable that's happened. Progress is all around us. It defines our world. Our main job as lovers of liberty and lovers of humanity is to throw ourselves into it in a big way in whatever part of the world we occupy and push that progress further down the road. It's a revolution against power in the end. That's what it's all about. It's a revolution for individuals, and it's a revolution for the human mind and for the human will against those who would steal all those things from us. And history's on our side. I believe that very firmly.
Amen. Yeah, good stuff. All right, so we got one more question, and then we're gonna let you tell us where we can stay track of what you're doing. So here, 1 second.
Hey Jeffrey. A couple of weeks back, you wrote an article that had a lot of impact for me, and there were a lot of people that read it and talked about it and so forth. There's the one on brutalist libertarians and humanist libertarians, and I'm really curious. To me, I think it could have a lot of positive impact if people understood. And I'm not even 100% sure I understand, so I wanted you to talk for a moment about it. I want to make sure that my guesses are, and I'd like people to hear about this that haven't heard about this. And what was your intention? And yeah.
Yeah, what was my intention? I didn't have an intention when I wrote that. I never do. I wrote that as a private study because, gosh, what a huge question. It's bothered me for some years that people are afraid of what we believe, and they shouldn't be. And I couldn't understand why. I mean, we have the most humanistic, most progressive, most flourishing, beautiful vision of what's possible in the world, and an awareness of the things that are holding us back. And yet, we have a hard time explaining to people, we're not out to rule anybody. We don't have any plans. We're not going to take anything you love away from you. What we want to do is clean the world up of the things that are preventing you from achieving your dreams. And I couldn't understand why that message wasn't getting out. And I always worried about a brand of kind of liberty thinking that seems to have a plan, that's excessively truncated and severe, that is too reductionist and doesn't imagine a flourishing world, but imagines a set of very severe, restrictive rules. And I wasn't thinking about any particular thinker, but just one brand of thought. And when I saw the word brutalist attached to the kind of ideologies that think along these ways, I began to look into it a little further, and I discovered the School of Architecture that was prominent from the 1950s to the 1970s, that actually, as a matter of principle, reduced down to very functional aspects of architecture, and on principle, and on aesthetic and moral principle, opposed any emanations or elaborations on it, and pushed that and shoved that into the faces of the people who would use these buildings, independent of any marketing, any humanistic concerns or anything else like that. And I thought, wouldn't it be awful if libertarianism became like that, just radically reductionist. And I began to write this memo to myself, and I finished it, actually. And I've been here and there. I know certain tendencies and archetypes in the world of liberty, and I've made it very evocative, probably more so than I intended. And again, as a private memo to myself, as a way to be and not to be. And then I shared it with a few friends who went nuts and said, this is brilliant, and it must be published. And of course, I'm the most reckless person ever, So I figured, what the hell? Let's put it out there and see what happens. And then, it became a little bit more viral than I ever expected it to. And, but on the other hand, I'm pleased to hear you say that you felt like you benefited from it a lot. I wrote that memo that article for myself because I wanted to benefit from it. Like a lot of the things I write it just to teach myself things. So that article was intended for me as a permanent reminder. I've been through my own brutalistic stages in life, and I don't like it. The more I think about liberty, the bigger it gets. Not the smaller, but the larger it gets. And I'm so enticed by that vision. And I want to share it with other people. I want to tell people what's coming, what's possible, the progress that can be ours as all of humanity. So I wrote the memo to always remind myself to think that way, to talk that way, and to believe that way. That I believe that is the way forward. So that was the essence of the article and why I wrote it. Why it appeared in public was just because I like to do dangerous things, that's all.
Very cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. All right, well, we'll call it a night. If you want to give a plug for where we can follow you and stay up to date with.
Well, first of all, you should just always feel free to write or call or text me or just anything, anytime. I'm available through all the usual channels. If you want to keep up with the events on Liberty Me, you can put in your email address. In 1 week, you're going to see your inbox is just flooded with articles. I don't know how many have been written just since we've been in live beta, but maybe 100 or 200 really wonderful articles that are not yet public. They're all going to hit the world at once. It's just going to be overwhelming in about 1 week. I'd love you to join me. If you don't, there's going to be plenty of free content, and I just hope you wish us well. And let's all be good friends forever and be a wonderful community together. Be civil, be productive, share our knowledge with each other, become better people, and build a beautiful future together. Thank you so much for taking out time from your precious schedule to come in and be with me tonight. It means a lot to me to be invited and to have a chance to talk to you. So thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon. All right. Well, that went well.
One scotch, one bourbon, one beer. One scotch,